He was a man who stood at the hypocenter of history not once, but twice. A man who felt the searing heat of a collapsing star on his skin on a Monday and then watched the same impossible sun rise over his hometown on a Thursday. This is not a myth. This is not a metaphor. This is the documented, verified, terrifying reality of Tsutomu Yamaguchi, the only person officially recognized by the government of Japan as having survived both atomic bombs. In the summer of 1945, Tsutomu Yamaguchi was a 29-year-old engineer working for Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. He was a serious man, a meticulous draftsman who designed oil tankers. He was not a philosopher. He was not a poet. He was a man of calculations, of slide rules, of precise lines on blue paper. For 3 months, he had been stationed in Hiroshima on a business trip, living in a modest boarding house away from his wife Hisako and his infant son Katsutoshi back home in Nagasaki. He missed them with a quiet, steady ache. He wrote letters. He worked long hours. He counted the days until his assignment was over. The war was going badly. Japan was starving. The cities were being firebombed into ash one by one. But Hiroshima strangely had been spared the conventional bombing. Rumors swirled. The Americans were saving it for something. No one knew what. No one could have possibly imagined. August 6, 1945, began as a brutally hot, humid, almost suffocating summer morning. The cicadas were screaming in the trees. Tsutomu woke early, dressed in his work clothes and prepared for another day at the Mitsubishi shipyard. He was walking with 2 colleagues, Akira Iwanaga and Kuniyoshi Sato, toward the docks. They talked about the work ahead, perhaps about the lack of food, perhaps about the B-29s that had flown over the city earlier that morning, triggering a brief fare rate alert that had since been lifted. At exactly 8:15 in the morning, Tsutomu was walking down a road, glancing down at a small leaf floating on a puddle of water. He was momentarily distracted by the simple, fragile beauty of it. A leaf, water, life, and then the sky ripped open. He saw the flash first, not with his eyes, but with his entire being. It was a silent, blinding, magnesium-white annihilation of reality itself. The light preceded the sound by an eternity compressed into a fraction of a second. It was so bright that it cast sharp, hard shadows on the ground. Behind him, shadows that would become permanent, ghostly photographs etched into the stone of the city. The thermal pulse arrived instantly, a wave of heat at several thousand degrees Celsius. It seared the left side of his body facing the hypocenter. His exposed skin bubbled and peeled away. His hair singed and curled into black dust. His shirt was incinerated into his flesh. The eardrums in both of his ears ruptured instantly, plunging him into a high-pitched, ringing silence that was more terrifying than any explosion. Then the blast wave hit. It was not wind. It was a solid wall of compressed atmosphere, a fist of physics that picked him up and hurled him through the air like a discarded doll. He was flung into a sweet potato field, debris raining down on him, burying him in a shallow grave of shattered wood and ash. When he opened his eyes, the world was black. The mushroom cloud, that hideous boiling column of death and debris, had blotted out the sun. It was noon at 8:16 in the morning. He was 3 kilometers from ground zero, close enough to die 100 different ways, far enough to survive. His colleagues were alive, but they were unrecognizable. Their faces were grotesque masks of swollen flesh and black soot. Tsutomu looked down at his own hands. The skin was hanging from his fingertips like wet parchment. The left side of his body was a canvas of charred weeping burns. But the bones were intact. The muscles still obeyed. He could move. He could stand. He could walk. The hours that followed were a descent into a living hell that no human being should ever witness. He staggered toward what was left of the city. Hiroshima was a boiling, burning graveyard. The dead lay everywhere, frozen in the positions they held at the moment of the flash. Some were carbonized statues, blackened husks that crumbled at the touch. Others were walking silent, columns of human agony, their arms held out in front of them like sleepwalkers, the skin of their forearms hanging in strips, their eyeballs melted. The rivers, a desperate source of relief for those burning, from the inside out, were choked with floating bodies. The cries for water were constant, a low guttural moan that rose from the ruins. But giving water to the severely burned meant a faster, more certain death. Tsutomu pushed on through this, furnace his body screaming his mind, retreating into a protective shell of total shock. He found a makeshift first aid station, a scene of pure chaos where the dying outnumbered the living and medicine was a distant memory. A desperate medic smeared a thick paste of salt and machine oil onto his raw, burns a homemade ointment that felt like liquid fire being poured directly into his nerve endings. He spent the night in an air raid shelter packed in with the silent, dead, and the screaming, dying, waiting for a dawn that felt like it would never come. But dawn did come. August 7th, the light revealed the full panoramic horror. A city of 350,000 people had been erased, replaced by a flat gray, smoldering plain of ash and twisted metal. Tsutomu's mind had only one goal, one singular burning obsession. He had to get home, Nagasaki, his wife, his son. Ignoring the protests of his body, ignoring the burns that were already beginning to fester and stink, he wrapped himself in loose rags and began a slow, agonizing trek to the western edge of the city where rumors said a train might be running. The train station was a scene from a nightmare. Thousands of burned, desperate refugees were pushing, shoving, pleading to board. By some miracle of sheer stubborn will, Tsutomu squeezed his body into a carriage packed beyond capacity. The air inside was a thick, nauseating soup of sweat pus and charred flesh. The train moved slowly, agonizingly through the scorched landscape of Japan, stopping and starting. A ghost ship sailing through a nation in ruins. For hours he sat rigid, his raw back pressed against the hard wooden seat, every jolt and sway of the carriage a fresh explosion of pain. He did not cry. He did not complain. He just stared out the window, his face a stone mask, his eyes fixed on a horizon that held the promise of home. When the train finally pulled into Nagasaki Station, the sight of the familiar green hills and the smell of the saltwater harbor was an almost religious experience. He was home. He had made it. He stumbled through the streets, a bandaged specter, shocking the neighbors who recognized the shell of the man they once knew. When he reached his doorstep, his wife Hisako opened the door. She screamed. The creature standing before her face, bloated and blackened, wrapped in blood-stained rags, was barely recognizable as her husband. She cried, gathering him into the house, cleaning his wounds with precious cooking oil saved for the darkest times. Wrapping him in clean, soft bandages, she laid him down in the cool, dark back room, the tatami, mat soft beneath his tortured body. His son was safe. His wife was safe. He closed his eyes. He was finally impossibly safe. He was home for exactly one single day. One precious, fleeting, deceptive day of peace. August 9th, 1945. Despite the agony, despite Hisako's desperate pleas for him to stay in bed, Tsutomu's deeply ingrained sense of duty compelled him to rise. He had a report to deliver. He had to explain to his boss, the director of the Nagasaki shipyard, what he had witnessed in Hiroshima. The very idea was absurd, but duty was a force more powerful than pain. He limped to the Mitsubishi headquarters, his body held together by bandages and sheer willpower. He entered the director's office at 11:00 a.m. The director Stern, skeptical man, looked at the bandaged, limping figure before him and listened, with barely concealed disbelief as Tsutomu began to describe a single bomb that could level an entire city. "You are an engineer," the director said dismissively. "Calculated. How could one bomb destroy an entire city?" Tsutomu stood there, his body a testament to the impossible math of it. Preparing to answer, he opened his mouth, and in that precise moment, for the second time in 3 days, the world outside the window flashed a blinding, brilliant, ungodly, white, instantly, catastrophically. Again, second sun, this one detonating over the Urakami Valley in the north of Nagasaki. Pure muscle memory instinct forged in the crucible of Hiroshima just 72 hours earlier threw Tsutomu to the floor a split second before the shockwave hit. The massive plate glass windows of the office did not just shatter, they vaporized into a horizontal blizzard of jagged, lethal shrapnel. The roof was torn clean, off the building, exposing the churning purple-gray monster of a mushroom cloud, climbing into the sky directly above him. Steel girders twisted and groaned. The world was ending. Again, he was 2.9 kilometers from the hypocenter. In Hiroshima, he had been 3 kilometers away. The universe with a cold, calculated precision had dropped him in the exact same, killing radius twice. When the roaring stopped and the dust settled, Tsutomu crawled out from under the wreckage of the Mitsubishi office. He was alive. His body was broken, his spirit was crushed, but his heart was still beating. He had just survived the second atomic bomb in 3 days. But the horror was not an abstract citywide tragedy this time. This was Nagasaki. This was his home. The terror that seized him was absolute, primal, a jolt of adrenaline, so powerful it erased the pain of his fresh wounds. Katsutoshi. Bombs did not just target cities, they targeted his family. He ran. He ran through the firestorms, through the collapsing houses, through the dead and dying of his own neighborhood toward the hillside where his house stood. The geography of Nagasaki, a city built on steep valleys, had acted as a partial, natural shield for certain areas. When he reached the hill, his heart stopped. His house was still standing. The blast wave, moving in a straight line, had swept up the valley and passed directly over his roof, leaving the structure shaken and cracked but not flattened. He burst through the door, screaming his wife's name. The air was thick with plaster dust and the smell of scorched wood. And there, emerging from the rubble like a miracle, was Hisako. She had heard the drone of the plane, had grabbed their son, and had thrown them both under a heavy kitchen table just as the windows blew in. She was cut and bruised. The baby was screaming. But they were alive. The Yamaguchi family, touched by the white-hot finger of atomic death twice in 72 hours, was still breathing. But the bomb is a gift that keeps giving. It does not stop at the blast. The invisible killer was already settling over the city. As Tsutomu led his family to a nearby hill for safety, the sky began to weep, a thick, black, greasy rain. It was a radioactive slurry of fission byproducts, vaporized city and pulverized human remains, condensed into huge oily droplets that stuck to everything they touched. Desperate with a thirst that radiation poisoning itself causes, Tsutomu and Hisako tilted their heads back and opened their mouths, catching the black rain and swallowing it. They were drinking death, and they had no idea. The poison sank deep, into their bone marrow, into their cells, into the very blueprint of their DNA. Within days, the horror of acute radiation syndrome began to manifest. Tsutomu's hair, already singed, fell out in sickening clumps. Purple spots called petechiae bloomed like rotten flowers under his skin as his capillaries burst. His gums bled freely, blackening at the edges. A crushing, all-consuming fatigue overwhelmed him, a weariness so profound it felt like the very life force was being drained from his cells. He lay in a fever, drifting in and out of a radioactive hell for weeks. But slowly, against all medical logic, his body began to fight back. His children miraculously showed no signs of severe sickness. His wife weakened and ill clung to life. They had dodged the fire, the wind, and now slowly, agonizingly, they began to dodge the invisible ghost of the atom. The will to live, it turns out, can sometimes rewrite even the most damaged genetic code. The war ended. The Empire of Japan surrendered. The occupation began, and Tsutomu Yamaguchi, the man who should have been a statistic twice over, did something truly remarkable. He went back to living. He did not become a professional victim or a voice of immediate rage. He retreated into the quiet, stoic normalcy of a survivor. In a profound twist of fate, he took a job as a translator for the occupying American forces, sitting across the table from the sons of the nation that had dropped the bombs, helping them navigate a shattered country. He eventually returned to his work as an engineer, teaching high school. For years, and raising his children, he wore long-sleeved shirts to cover the thick, rippled, keloid scars that mapped the left side of his body. He rarely spoke of the bomb. To the world, he was just a quiet, serious man, a father, a husband, a teacher. But his body was a secret museum of Armageddon, a silent living document of the nuclear age. For decades, his double survival was a dark, curious family secret. Occasionally, whispered about but never openly broadcast. He was not angry. He was just tired. But as the decades passed and he entered his 80s and 90s, Tsutomu watched the world change. He saw nations building weapons 1,000 times more powerful than the ones that had burned him. He saw new generations growing up with no memory, no understanding of the absolute furnace he had walked through. The silence became unbearable. The quiet old man with the hidden scars realized that he had not been saved for nothing. He was a witness, perhaps the only witness of his kind in the history of the world. And so at an age when most men are content to fade into memory, Tsutomu Yamaguchi shattered his silence. He wrote his memoirs, a stark, unflinching book called And Then There Was No One Left. He began speaking publicly, his frail voice carrying the weight of 1,000 tons of physics. He traveled to New York and stood before the United Nations General Assembly, a 90-year-old man with a walking stick, a man who had felt the heat of 2 suns, and he screened a film about his life. He did not speak of political blame. He did not speak of hate. He spoke a simple, haunting truth that only a double survivor could deliver. He described the silent flash. He described the black rain. He told the world what it actually looked like when a human being, a family, a city was simply erased from the face of the earth. His message was not one of vengeance, but a raw, desperate plea for abolition. He was a living, breathing statistical impossibility, a warning carved in flesh and bone, and his testimony was unimpeachable. He was officially recognized by the Japanese government in 2009 as the only recorded Niju Hibakusha, a twice-bombed person. He stood before them, a map of suffering, and received the recognition with a heavy, profound stillness. Tsutomu Yamaguchi passed away on January 4th, 2010, at the age of 93 from stomach cancer, a long-delayed, silent handshake with the radiation he had absorbed 65 years earlier. He died surrounded by his family, a peaceful end to an existence defined by impossible violence. He left behind 3 children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. He left behind a lesson that is terrifyingly simple. He survived because he was exactly 3 kilometers from ground zero. Twice. It was not a miracle, it was a geometry of pure chance. And in that lesson is a stark, horrifying warning. The line between life and absolute vaporization in a nuclear blast is not thick. It is not magical. It is invisible, arbitrary, and utterly indifferent to your goodness, your wealth, or your dreams. The man who survived both bombs did not survive because he was chosen. He survived to show us the absolute finality of the choice our world continues to face. He was the man who felt the sun fall twice, and the shadow he left behind is not just on the stone steps of a Hiroshima bank. It is on the conscience of humanity itself.